speaker is Craig Stevens. Craig and I spent a lovely evening together at Homer this weekend. First time I had seen him present, and what I have to tell you is I've been doing this stuff for 4 years, in various ways, going to forums, listening, speaking, etc., etc. I figure I knew it all, right? A smart professor, love letters after my name, all that kind of stuff. Now, I always learn something, and I learned quite a bit on Saturday night, partly from Craig and from the other speakers. Let me read his bio. Short version. He's a sixth-generation landowner who has leased his mineral rights to Chesapeake Energy. He's spoken to groups across upstate New York about the broken promises of the gas companies and the destruction to his property, which he had hoped to pass on to his children and grandchildren. Craig has been active in bringing water to Dimming families whose water is contaminated by Cabot and who have not had water since Cabot ended delivery in 2011, I'm sorry. And that's a fairly well-known story. He'll be able to tell you a bit more about some of his pieces. Craig?
Good evening, folks. Craig Stevens, Silver Lake Township, Pennsylvania. I wear two hats when I speak. This one gets some people upset, because this is not politics, but if I really want to upset this crowd, then I can do that. The reason I do that is not to be funny. It's so that you don't judge people by what they drive or what their politics are. This has nothing to do with politics tonight. This is about education. You notice I said education, not indoctrination. I respect everybody's opinion as long as they respect mine also. You may have read about me in the paper. My story came to light. My father lived in a house with his mother for 13 years, although I'm from California. I was born and raised in California. To take care of her. She went into a nursing home. He died tragically 5 years ago today in 2007. And upon his death, I inherited 1/3 ownership in a family property that's been in our family for 6 generations. My aunt and uncle were already given the other third in 1994, along with my father. And so I knew nothing about this. I had no idea what was happening. I ended up purchasing the rest of the family home in 2009, right down the road here, just north of Montrose. I'm 8 miles south of this New York state line. I call it New York Light. And what I'm going to speak about very quickly is the experiences that I've had dealing directly with the industry. Yes, I have a lease. When I moved here, I was drill baby drill. I'm a right-wing Tea Party conservative. This won't make some of you happy either. I was at the Tea Party rally in 2009, right in front of the White House. Okay, so I look at conservative as conservation. Conserving the principles of the Founding Fathers. I carry that around, it's well worn. That's the Constitution of the United States. I also have the Pennsylvania Constitution. I've only lived under that Constitution for the last 2 years, but there are some pretty bold statements in here. Considering this is one of the original colonies and the founding state that wrote the Declaration of Independence, I feel pretty solid that I was in the right place. What I found when I moved here was a lot of people ignoring their own rights and the rights of others. I'm going to start off with a quote because it's pertaining to everybody in this room. Martin Luther King says, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." He meant that back in the 60s. Okay? I mean it right now. The industry loves everybody that does this. I found that out really quickly. If you say yes to whatever they say, they love you. They will shower you with money and praise. If you go like this, like I did, they're not very happy with you. They start going, that Craig guy, we better watch out. And then like Williams now, WPX, has my picture up in their security offices because I guess I'm a threat to them. I've never even gone to a well pad site or their well pad sites, but yeah, my picture's there. But if you go like this, watch out. It's like being one of the weasels that comes up at Chuck E. Cheese's with, or moles, the whack-a-mole. Literally, you have to be stopped from going like this. And as a landowner and a private property owner, I was concerned. You read my story in the paper. After inheriting my property, I found out that Chesapeake had paid a visit to my grandmother in a nursing home. So on November 26th, because Chesapeake refused to acknowledge my ownership rights of 1/9 of that property, my brother and sister had the other 2/9, That's 1/3 of a piece of property. I called Chesapeake for 6 months and they refused to acknowledge my ownership rights. They signed my grandmother to a gas lease in 2007. My dad's brother took Chesapeake to the nursing home and signed her for $135.10 an acre. One problem, when they went to record on the deed, she was the life tenant only. Okay, that didn't stop them. They knew my dad existed and he had passed away 6 weeks earlier. He would never sign a lease because he didn't like what the industry does to the area. He was well familiar with them. But what I was most concerned was they actually had a document that they were supposed to get a hold of my brother, the executor of his estate, and they refused. They cannot produce one document, one letter, anything that they did certified from FedEx or UPS or anything that they even attempted to acknowledge our existence and to communicate with us that they were trying to lease our property. That was problem number one that I found out after the fact. I did not even find out we had a lease till 1.5 years later. And so I didn't like that. I tried to deal with them directly like I always do. I didn't get a lawyer. I called them up. Their answer was, we're not leasing anymore. We're not interested in speaking with you. I said, but I own 1/3 of a property. You've already leased my grandmother, but she's a life tenant. And you signed my aunt and uncle to what? A ratification. They own 39 acres of property, my aunt and uncle do each of our piece of property. They took not a dime, they signed a piece of paper, signed it over for my grandmother. Didn't want to talk to me. So the Associated Press did. I had to prove to this journalist, Michael Rumicam, my story. I gave him 3-inch thick stack of documents he reviewed before he would even look at it, but he took some pictures. He ran a 20-paragraph story about my experiences on November 26th, Black Friday, day after Thanksgiving. You'll see I have papers here from all over the country. Matter of fact, all over the world that story went. Then they called me up and wanted to talk to me. Why? Why did I have to do that to get them to acknowledge my deeded rights as a landowner? I don't know, but that's the problem. That's why I'm here speaking tonight. There's the 10 Commandments. There's one of them on here that I see happening, getting broken where I am. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbors. The industry comes to town and everybody goes to battle with each other. First people get real upset because one neighbor got 50 bucks an acre and was told, that's it, we're leaving tomorrow, sign tonight or else we'll take your gas anyway and you're not going to get paid for it. So they signed. The neighbor across the street waits, a few years later, they signed for $6,000 an acre. I have neighbors of mine that have 1,000-acre farms. One person gets $50,000, one person waits, they get $6 million. How happy do you think the people are that signed for 50? And I call it from the Eddie Murphy film, Beverly Hills Cop, they fell for the banana in the tailpipe. If you don't know the reference, just watch the movie, it's pretty funny. My concern is, Sir Edmund Burke said it best, it's one of my favorite quotes, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Got any good men or women in the room? I'll tell you what. On Friday, I was in Demick as the 2 state reps visited, not only in Demick, but they also visited in a whole area. They toured for 6 hours. 2 state reps, that's the first 2 state reps ever to come and visit the victims. They don't come to visit the victims, they come to visit the industry and get a nice tour of the well pads and probably get taken out to dinner or lunch or whatever. That's my concern is, our state senator, y'all, has never been to visit anybody that claims to have, and I say claims because until it gets proven in the court of law, it's a claim. But if you're a state official, representative, somebody that's an elected official, your job is to find out both sides. We can't get anybody to show up. I can't prove they're lying and I can't prove they're telling the truth. They'll figure that out in court. What I can do is back my neighbors. Salt Springs Park, that's in the news right now because it's being blamed for the methane migration down the road in Franklin Forks. You guys want to see what goes on? Drive right down 29, and when you get to Franklin Forks, you'll drop down, there'll be a bunch of boats. There's a yellow house sitting there. There's 1,100 gallon water buffalo with a vent pipe sitting on your left. Straight across the street's another one, and on the way down the little bridge before you get there is another one. I got those there because the state of Pennsylvania and WPX were going to do nothing about an issue that was happening with people's water in December 6th of last year. 3.5 months later, I decided that that was not the way they were going to treat my neighbors. So I did what I thought was right. I called both WPX and the state and said, is anybody going to help these people? They have Their water is disgusting. They've got high methane, you know that. The readings are off the charts. Nope. We're waiting to see what the results will be. So I called PEMA, Pennsylvania Emergency Management. Because it was methane and it was right next to 29, I declared a methane explosion hazard on 29. I went from the receptionist to the head of PEMA in 5 seconds. See, I don't care one way or another. If we prove the people are lying and they don't have bad water, that's fine. If we prove the company did nothing wrong, that's fine. But while we're trying to prove that, whether it takes weeks, months, or years, let's as neighbors take care of each other. I don't care what the situation is, but we had floods here. You guys know all about it. We got hammered right below the border. You got hammered here. All I remember is people running around with water, food, and offering shelter to anybody that needed it. Immediately, within 24 hours or less of the disaster. Well, we might have the same thing here, a disaster. It's in the making. If we're not willing to help each other on that, I don't know what we're talking about. Because we're here about money. Okay, there's the money issue. Foreign flurry, it's in the newspaper. There's so much investment by foreign people, China, Japan, Norway, Russia, India. They're all in this to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. Why? There's the price of natural gas, look it up. It's about $2 a thousand right now. I'm a landowner, do I want them taking my minerals? When I signed even 2 years ago with Chesapeake, it was about $8 a thousand, now it's $2. If that was a gold mine, do you think I'd have them taking my gold out from underneath the ground right now? No. If the price of gold is $200 an ounce, I'm not going to be playing until it's back up to $1,600. You don't have a choice once you sign. Once you sign an agreement with the industry, they determine when they're going to take it. And all of it is based on when your lease is going to expire with them, whether it's 5 or 10 year. So as far as private property rights, they're done when you sign the document. It's a law in the state of Pennsylvania, they can't sign life tenants. They can't convey minerals because it's part of the realty. They ignored that. Here's the addendum letter that the attorney that I got. I only got an attorney. I gave him my lease, gave him $750 flat. He wrote, he's in right in Montrose. He's done 1,000 of these. He wrote 17 addendums to Chesapeake. They sent back a letter that said, your client signs the lease as is, or tell them to forget it. So I mean, their answer is, they tell you, the cover letter I got was go see a lawyer. You go see a lawyer, they give them some addendums that seem fairly reasonable, and they tell you, yeah, we're not playing. There's the seismic. When they come into town, the seismic guys, my brother got a check for $189.98 in the mail. And he called up this company, Cougar Land Services, so what's this money for? We're doing the survey, the seismic survey on your property. He said, on whose authorization? Wayne Stevens. Well, Wayne Stevens owns 1/3 of the property, but not the whole thing. They said, don't worry, Pennsylvania's a 1% state. We don't need anybody else's authorization. Really? We said, put it in writing. They haven't done it yet. Imagine that. Then, after you sign, you get these cool things in the mail from all these different companies. They're willing to buy, they don't want you to wait around for those pesky mineral rights to come and get checks from the industry. Why don't you just sell us your mineral rights? So we'll take over and do the waiting. We'll give you some money up front. So when I did a little research, guess what? These are different companies, the Caffey Group, all these. When you lead them back, they're Chesapeake, Exxon, Carrizo. They're all, you just lead right back to it. They're the same guys. Now they're going to buy it from you. My grandmother's lease was 12.5%. You know the phrase 10 cents on the dollar? And when you get ripped off, they say you got 10 cents on the dollar for what you own. 12.5% is the minimum royalty that she got signed for, and most of the people here that signed early, that's about as close to 10 cents on the dollar as you're going to get, folks. It's your minerals under your property. What? 12.5, 15, 20%? People go, I got 20%. I go, great, they get 80. Do you not know math very well? I don't think people do. We did sign to let Laser put their pipeline across my property, 1/2 mile. So I have not only a lease, but I have a 1/2 mile of a 16-inch high-pressure gas line across my property. Of course, you read about that in the paper. They blew the creek out in my backyard 8 times in a row over 2 months. It was supposed to take them a couple days to drill under the creek in my backyard. It took them 2.5 months. They were shut down by the DEP twice. I called. You'll know the same day that they did that July 29th of last year, they also drove a mud truck down the street and the mud truck flipped over on top of my neighbor John Jones's Subaru Legacy. If you read about it in the paper, it crushed his side of the vehicle, but he was still alive. His daughter opened the passenger door, Allison, got out, came around and watched her dad die over the next 5 minutes. He was part of the car after that. We found out the truck had 3 faulty brakes. We don't even think the driver had a commercial driver's license. See, I don't know about you, but are you the part of the club right now that has 400 to 500 heavy trucks driving 24 hours a day on the front of their house? Because the front of my house sits 50 feet off Silver Creek Road, and they're not even drilling in Silver Lake Township yet. That's traffic from Franklin Township. So just remember, folks, when you get dealing with them, you go like this, you don't go like this. I asked the DEP to come up to my property to look at the damage that was done upon the installation of the pipeline. They came up 4 times, told me there was no problem. I actually had Fish and Boat go. First they told me we had floods, there's not going to be a problem. There is a they charged them with 5 criminal counts and fined them $20,000 and collected it. That's Fish and Boat, the state agency. There's what I got from Right to Know. 20 pages of violations that were done installing this pipeline. When the DEP, that's from DEP. Nothing happened up on your property. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, as you see in the Wizard of Oz. When you answer this, when you think about what you're doing with your own property, I will never tell you not to sign, I'll never tell you not to take the bonus money. That's a private property issue. But when you can figure out how to get 400 trucks a day to bring all the material onto your property and not affect all the roads and your neighbors and the noise and all that, that's private. It becomes public when you are endangering and having other things happen to your neighbors. This is not a private property issue. Signing a lease is, but when they are doing the work to develop your property, they're doing it all over the community. And that means we should all have a say in what happens after you sign that lease, because I'm afraid to say it took a week to destroy the 1957 built bridge next to my house. So, am I for or against drilling? Well, I'll say the same thing I tell my conservative politicians that I voted for in 2010 before I got to know them and they never showed up to talk to us. The get out of jail free card is, we love it. We love the money coming in from the industry. We love the jobs. And all they have to say at the end is, unless it's proven not to be safe. And then they have to leave the state and never come back until they can prove us it's safe. And I don't know about you, but I'm talking to the people that are getting the jobs and the work. And one guy told me they pay us 90 days behind. He said I can barely stay in business. I have to pay my employees every week, but they don't pay me for 90 days. He called himself an indentured servant. So when you sign a lease, you're not a partner. I told Chesapeake, I feel like an indentured servant or a slave because that's closer to the relationship I have. Don't let yourselves sell out without researching this and figuring out what's going on. I have 4 children. I'd like to be the 7th generation owners. And whenever I make a decision now on this issue, I put their faces on it. I would love to have them take over my property, but I'm afraid that they're not going to have anything left there that's can't grow anything, can't drink the water, and there's no quality of life because everything is an industrial area. And so my fear is that could be a problem. So I use the term generational suicide. Unless we really know the safety and the efficacy of this industry being in our areas, including here in New York State, since I'm a 5th generation Oswegonian, my mom's from Oswego, I would say right now, at the very least, put it on hold and let's wait and see. I know they've been waiting a long time here, but if you're going to get anything near what we're getting down a few miles south of you here, it's not worth it. Thank you.